guys, tips, tricks, and hidden features for the iPhone SE. These fantastic tips will surely enhance your use of your new iPhone SE and will even benefit other iPhone owners. So grab your iPhone and follow along as I share some incredible tactics for your iPhone. Let's dive in. So if you launch Safari and you type in an address into the address bar and you click go, just about 100% of the time it takes you to the mobile version of that website. Now there is a way to request the actual desktop website. All you do is press and hold the refresh button on Safari, and then it's going to bring up a secret menu that says request desktop site. Tap on that, it's going to take you to the full version of that website that you would see on a desktop PC or a laptop. Next up, let me show you quickly how to clear the RAM on your phone. Press and hold the power button until slide to power off appears, and then press and hold the home button, and that's going to clear the RAM. Just press and hold it until you go to the home screen, and the moment the home screen appears, that actually clears the RAM in the background. Let's move on. Alright, so next tip has to do with your video camera. As you know, the iPhone comes with an advanced video camera that can record in 1080p in 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, or 4K video. I just want to show you quickly how you can toggle between these options. Now first and foremost, let's launch the camera, and I just want you guys to know when you first launch the camera and you go to the video mode, by default it is recording at 1080p in 30 frames per second. That's just a default option. You simply have to glance at the black area in the bottom right to confirm this. If there's nothing going on over there, that means you're recording at 1080p in 30 frames per second. Let me show you how to modify those options. Go into the settings, scroll down where it says photos and camera, and then scroll down again and go to record video, and here's where you tweak all the options. As you can see, you have 4 options: 720p at 30 frames per second, 1080p at 30 frames per second, which has a check mark next to it. That means it is the default. And then you can switch to 1080p at 60 frames per second by simply tapping on that option. And quickly pay attention to the block of text at the bottom over here. It shows you that the higher the resolution and the higher the frames per second, the more space your video takes. And also in the case of 1080p at 60 frames per second, your video is going to take more space, but it's also going to be much more smooth. So just keep those things in mind. Let's get out of here and launch the camera. I'm going to show you something real nice. So if you go back into camera, if you look at that bottom block, now it says 60 frames per second. So you can tell at a glance at what frames per second your video is being recorded at, and also at what resolution. Let's do the same thing with the 4K. Let's go back into settings, pick 4K at 30 frames per second, go back into camera, and at the video now it says 4K. So you can always tell at what resolution you are in fact recording. Now you can do the same thing with slow motion recording. So let's go back into settings, go back into photos and camera, and right at the bottom it says record slow motion. You do have 2 options. You can do 1080p at 120 frames per second or 720p at 240 frames per second, which is going to give you super slow motion. And if you go back into the camera, and if you scroll over to slow-mo, at the bottom block you're not going to see anything. If you don't see anything, that means it's being recorded at 240 frames per second. If you pick this option and go back to the camera,